The one mindset thing that a leader needs to have is total belief in the company's mission. And even if there's times where the leader is doubting, because that happens, right? As all of us have that as leaders.
Mhm.
But when you're in front of your people and when you're leading the team, that's not something they should ever see, is my belief. It's something that by having that belief in what you're doing, that's what gets people to follow a leader, is total belief. Now, if you believe your strategy is wrong, that's a whole different thing. Change that, even and off you go again, right? But the leader needs to believe, and that cascades down. And if they see doubt or any kind of, and that's the cornerstone of manifesting, is you use your imagination to create a vision of what you want to happen. And there's techniques after that to make it happen.
You're listening to RevOps Champions, a podcast created for B2B leaders to help you align your people, streamline your processes, trust your data, and leverage technology in order to grow your business. Welcome to the RevOps Champions podcast, or welcome back if this is not your first episode. Today's guest is Robert, or goes by Rob Triggs, founder of RTR. RTR does B2B sales and is a sales transformation coach with more than 25 years of experience helping companies scale with clarity and confidence. Rob began his career at Xerox, where he earned Rookie of the Year and multiple President's Club awards, and later helped grow a Microsoft partner into one of the top firms in Canada before a successful acquisition. Today, Rob works with founders and revenue leaders to align teams, to use data effectively, and build sales systems that scale without chaos. He is also the creator of the CALM sales program, CALM, which helps sellers unlock limiting beliefs and win more often without pressure or burnout. Rob, welcome to the RevOps Champions podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Rob, I'm going to dive right in. So you started your career on a technical path before moving into sales. What led to that shift, and how did it change your perspective on growth and leadership?
That's a great question. Yeah, so I started my career as a service technician, and like many of your viewers, all of us have a story of how we started. Mine was that young, quiet boy taking things apart when I was young, trying to figure out how they worked. And I figured I would always work with my hands and be a technician. It made sense that was the path that I would go down. And so I ended up working for Xerox as a service technician. And then I was promoted to a service trainer, technical trainer. And then someone said in the department that ran the department, you should go into sales. And I said, heck no, I don't know how to tell jokes.
Right.
And anyway, I listened to them and I jumped in, and I struggled for quite some time, but then I figured it out. And after that, flourished and continued to flourish. That was 27 years ago. And I know that because my son was born my second month in sales and he's 27. So it's a really easy way for me to remember that. But how it shaped things for me is I fundamentally believe that pretty much anybody can be in sales, because we all are. All of us have to sell something at some point. You're either selling yourself to a college or university to go to school there. You're selling yourself to the partner you end up spending the rest of your life with. We're selling our houses, we're selling our cars, we're selling something all the time. But as soon as you tell someone, I want you to be a salesperson, they lock up and they freeze and they panic. Almost like when a camera is in your face sometimes you just you freeze. So selling is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's an act of service. And that's what I fundamentally believe.
Very, very cool. And and I'm sure that's a familiar story that, not, I think to your point, I don't know what the statistics are, but I'm guessing a lot of salespeople didn't start off by going, I'm going to be in sales, and probably started on a similar path to yours. So thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Rob, so misalignment seems to be a recurring challenge for growing companies. Can you share a moment where misalignment showed progress and what you learned from it?
Yeah, so as companies grow and scale, misalignment is one of the key barriers to the lack of ability to grow. And there's tiers companies reach, and they're well documented. There's lots of business books on them.
The ceilings of complexity, as they call them. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Like one of the tiers is that 50 million mark. There's something about 50 million. I don't know what it is. You can't get past that. and some can never get to the 50 million. But when you have a company, you have different departments. You have a sales department, you have a marketing department, you have some kind of a delivery capability and accounting and so on and so forth. And each one has their lane that they're responsible for. But if you can find a way to get each department to work together in a collaborative way and to really care about what each other's function is and respect it, because not one is better than the other, even though all the salespeople will think theirs is the most important. There's no one that's more important than the other. It's an ecosystem that has to work. And so when you work together like that, you can really flourish. And it begins with the founder and owner and executive team empowering the next level below them and let them succeed or fail, to be honest, right? Let them succeed or fail, put them some guidelines in place and let them do that. But the other part is having the right systems. Like we live in a day today with AI and everything else that the systems are critical. Absolutely critical. Some companies are being formed today with the systems first, right? Some companies, my son's one of them, he started a company and a lot of the functions in the company are being done by AI, believe it or not. And so now we're living in a world where the systems and the technology almost come before the people, right? And then for the roles that you can't get the technology to do it, then you have people, which is a weird phenomenon. But yeah, getting things working together is the name of the game.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think everyone can relate that anyone who's been part of a successful team that has scaled it, teamwork is central to every single one of them, right? But it is interesting that shift that you mentioned, how before you always there was a vision, and then you had to find the people who were interested in getting behind that vision, and then you would sort of figure out the systems after that. But to your point, systems almost become part of the vision today.
Yeah.
So that is an interesting shift.
Yeah, it is. I was part of a group called the CIO Summit in Canada. And these were a bunch of CIOs that were helping other CIOs get to the C-level table, have a seat at the C-level table. And in many organizations, the CIO was a cost center. We have these things we have to pay for. But now the CIO is sitting at the executive table, meeting with the board, creating the strategy that's being enabled by, it used to be enabled by technology. Now it's gone past that, right? The technology is creating the business model in many cases now.
Right.
Which is really interesting.
It's become a very strategic role, similar to how, some companies have a CFO and then other companies have a strategic CFO.
Yeah.
The CIO has now gone from being, to your point, a cost center to being a strategic differentiator in that business, right? Yeah.
So
very interesting. Another very interesting shift.
In some organizations, this is true. In others, they're still hanging on to that old model, that old framework.
Absolutely. So, Rob, as companies scale, structure becomes necessary, right? And you already talked about one example being that 50 million mark. And of course, there are other milestones before or after 50 million too. But structure really is critical in order to scale past the current level. Let's just say that too much can slow. Too much, structure can slow momentum. So how do you strike that balance in practice?
One word: empowerment. So especially with the different generations that we're dealing with in the workforce today, you can look at me and probably guess the generation I come from, hopefully.
Probably similar to mine.
Probably. And so we have a certain way of working because that's sort of the paradigm we've grown up in. But as you go through each generation, they don't work like that. And what some of the younger people in the workforce now, the way they work and the way they function is very different than the way we would or do. So the companies that I see that are flourishing is they really empower their people to be who they are. They value who they are. The executives are just removing barriers. They're not dictating much anymore. They're removing barriers for their very smart people who are very motivated and driven to drive the company forward. So organizations that are set up that way are the ones that I see are flourishing. There isn't a boss that, double checks emails before they go out. They empower people. They hire smart people. They reward them properly. They train them properly. And they see them flourish. And when things don't go properly, they communicate that clearly. And then when things do go properly, they reward that behavior tremendously. And so that captures all the generations, really, because all of us as humans want to work that way.
Yeah.
I don't think there's one person that ever wanted a micromanager, you know? Now, sometimes when you're starting out, you need a bit of a structure and blanket to guide you, right? You need guide rails
Hmm.
to get you to stay within the guide rails and things. Man, if you can run your organization with an empowered mindset,
Hmm.
that's the key.
Yeah, which yeah, I guess so. We talk about on the show a lot because so the four pillars for us for RevOps or revenue operations are people, process, data, and then technology is last for a reason. And when we sort of break those down, what you're talking about as far as empowerment is concerned is really in that people category. It's a sign of leadership, right? Good leaders are the ones who have that sort of culture of empowerment, and so that their job really just becomes, to your point, just removing obstacles so that all these smart people can just do what they do best and grow in what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a quick exercise. I like to give a quick story. Years ago, there was an exercise that I participated in, and it was empowered work group training that we did through the company I was with. And they gave us all a survey, a series of questions to answer. So we all answered them. And then when we had to score our own paper, and when we were done, there wasn't one person that got a perfect score. So then what they did is they took the entire room and they broke them into groups of six, no more than six people, and then they gave them the same assignment to go through it to try to answer it. Guess how many of the groups got perfect? All of them.
Mm.
It was eye opening. And so the power of sort of actually, have you ever heard this term before? The power of the mastermind. When you
Mm-hmm.
get, six seems to be the number, but when you get a group of six people together and everyone's treated equal and you're giving them a task or a challenge, if everyone has an equal voice, they will be able to make the right decision almost every time, or the better decision than by themselves.
Mm.
So that's what they do.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm going to double check that against the. So, are you familiar with Patrick Lencioni's Working Genius?
I know Patrick Lencioni, his books, but I don't know that one. No.
Okay, so it's something that he developed and launched 3 or 4 years ago, based on all the work that he'd done for decades around seeing successful leadership, the difference between successful leadership teams and those that weren't as successful. And there's a lot of his the working genius, essentially, when you do the assessment, which takes less than 10 minutes, you end up with it ranks these six different areas, which go from wonder, invention, discernment, galvanizing, enablement, and tenacity.
Hmm.
And every person has two of each of those. They're either your working genius, which are the two green ones. Then you have your sort of working frustration, sort of there's two in the middle that you can do, but they eventually will deplete your battery. And then the last two are the ones that will frustrate you, and ideally you would never have to work in those areas. But with the idea being that when you have 5 to 6 people, chances are you're gonna cover all six geniuses, and you need all six geniuses to be present to be successful. So
That's good.
that's a really interesting. So I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah. No, it's very powerful, that stuff.
Yeah, and again, for us it's foundational, because a lot of companies, when they come to us, they're coming to us, and you have a lot of background, I mean, in building technology systems, right? So you can relate. When a company comes to us, they're coming to us for what they think is a technology solution, but really it's not a technology. The technology is there to support their people, their processes, and the flow of the data. And so we have to ensure that that people, which is leadership structure, understanding, values, etc., are in place. Because if it's not, chances are this implementation and the rollout of the technology is not gonna succeed.
No, you're right.
So, but I have to sort of move on to the next piece, because I know that even though for you, empowerment, which is really in that people piece, is the foundation and the key, and I completely agree. You're also big on data driven decision making. So, what separates companies that truly run on data from those that simply collect data?
I think the biggest difference is the one that's not using data to make decision is really has a lot of a waste in time, waste having their most valuable resources focused on the wrong things.
Mhm.
Sometimes they'll launch into some kind of an initiative with half truths because they haven't really examined the data properly. So organizations that are leveraging the data to make decisions are doing much better. One of the challenges, though, is historically, when you look at companies, they have all these different systems that they use to run. So on the sales side, we use CRM systems. In the marketing team, they may use a marketing automation platform. When you have customer care departments, they're using customer service, for doing ticketing for user cases and things like that. And the
Mm-hmm.
accounting departments using accounting software, and on and on and on.
Right.
So if you could open all those systems up and look at them all at once to see the data, it tells the story of your company. The
Mm-hmm.
problem, though, historically, is those systems don't talk to each other. And it was very difficult to get information out. So what we would do is we would take information out of this system, we'd print them. And when I worked with Xerox, that was wonderful because we'd print so much. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
And we would look at this information on these big giant reports that we'd get. Remember those days? And then we would try to make decisions. And then we would have people that work for us to take all that information and put it into some kind of a spreadsheet and run pivot tables and try to make sense of it all. That takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. And what happens is if something takes a lot of time and a lot of very talented resource, it doesn't get done unless it's really necessary. So we would make decisions on things that were just half truths because we didn't have the time to do the investigative reporting. Now, with the different systems that we have access to, we don't need the systems to talk to each other, but we can get at all of the data and tell it to tell us what the story is. So now as an executive, I remember a very fast story. So this is during COVID, and this is where Satya Nadella, the head of Microsoft, was getting information. And during the early stages of COVID, everything was moving fast. Everything was very liquid. It was really difficult to know what to do. So his direct reports were getting information, putting it into presentations to go and present to him like we all do. Well, that takes time. That could take 2-3 days. So he said, I might be looking at information that's 3 days old. That's too old. I need to know right now. So the rumor is he went to his department and said, can you create a BI dashboard? And I want to see these 6 things, right? So now he didn't have to go see his direct reports. He would just pull it up on his phone and go, oh, well, that's down. I need to deal with that. So anyway, so that's a quick little animated example of if you can leverage data in an easy way to make better decisions, it's just common sense, right? It's better.
Sure. Well, and I think what's frustrating for folks like you and me who know that these systems exist is why so many leadership teams still don't believe that these systems are available and you can actually tie all those systems together. You can actually, and of course a lot of these platforms you don't need as many separate tools, and even then you could make it work, but the fewer tools you have, of course, the better. But again, that's just I guess if it's a big enough problem, leadership teams will eventually find the solution.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of companies invested heavily in IT and tech, and they haven't received the business result they were looking for. And unfortunately, that seems to be a bit of an epidemic in the tech space, which is unfortunate. There's a lot of really good partners, though, that are out there and companies out there that will give the value you're looking for. It's just making sure you find the right one that will do that for you.
Yeah, and I think what we see a lot ourselves in the HubSpot ecosystem, whether it's out in our own company or all the partners that we know and work with, the issue is often that the company that's coming to us with the problem, they in many cases still believe that technology is going to solve their business problems, and that of course is not going to happen, which is why that's part of our process. Once we move beyond the people piece, we want to make sure that they can map their marketing process, their sales process, the customer service process, that they can map those all manually without any technology.
Yeah.
Because in many cases, companies aren't able to do that. And if you aren't able to do it manually, then no technology is going to make it work, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's interesting. We used to get that a lot where customers would say, we're buying our CRM system to solve all of our sales problems.
Yes.
I said, well, what are the sales problems? Let's talk about that for a minute first. And then I'll let you know whether or not the CRM system will solve them.
Exactly. Which again, it's a very human thing, right? It's the shiny object syndrome is a thing for a reason. And I know because I suffer from it myself.
I saw a statistic the other day. It was, you ever heard of the fellow Alex Hormozy, I think his name is? He's
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was in one of his books, he talks about how, because he started off his work helping gyms be more profitable. Right.
Right.
And he said, what do most people want when they join a gym? Typically, if it's New Year's resolution, they want to lose weight.
Yeah.
So when you tell someone that if you come in the gym 2 to 3 times a week for 6 months, you'll lose weight. Or if you take this pill, you'll lose weight. Guess what they're going to do? So we
Yeah.
want fast gratification. And so I don't know. It's not always the case though.
Yeah. Which is why, now that that pill has been produced, it's, the hottest thing since,
Yeah.
sliced bread, as some people would say,
Yeah.
which of course is GLP-1s. Yes. So, okay. Yes, there's no such thing as a quick fix, I guess, is what we're agreeing to. So, Rob, you have strong views on, and you've already touched on this, on marketing automation and CRM, right? You've been in the trenches yourself for a long time. What lessons have you learned from implementing these tools correctly and incorrectly?
So incorrectly is if it's a sales tool, so a CRM system, is involve the people that are required to use it in the design of what it's going to be. Too often companies go off and create the CRM system and then they release it to the sales team and the sales managers and they had no input over it at all. So that's the first thing, is involve the people that are going to use it. The second thing is the management team. So if you are going to put a system in, CRM system or other, once you put the CRM system in or the other system in, manage that part of the business by using what the system says. Because if you have workarounds and you come out of the system and you dump data into spreadsheets and you do your work there and go back in, you break the integrity of having this system. And the system will never become sort of this pervasive cultural tool that it could be. So even if it's not working properly, use the system to manage the business and work on making the system do the things you need it to do. So those are two things that if you can do those you're ahead of most when they're implementing systems like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, as you were talking about the first one, I think the good news is that we're seeing fewer and fewer examples of your first example, where it seems like most businesses and their leadership teams um, have the sort of the level of sophistication and understanding of the fact that you know you can't expect a CRM to do things that you haven't yet told it to do, because ultimately it's just a tool that can
Mhm.
only be customized for your business to do the things that you want it to do, to your point. And we've definitely seen over the last 5 or 6 years that, we're having, unless we're just having conversations with the more sort of advanced and sophisticated leadership teams, but that seems to be, the good news is, it seems to be less and less of an issue.
That's good. That's really good. I think overall we're all evolving, and a part of it is there was a period of time where the technology we used at home for our own personal use was better than the technology we used at work.
Yes.
And I don't think that's true for most companies anymore. And so
Correct.
our IT departments have opened up. Moving to the cloud, I think, helped do that,
Hmm.
because we're always dealing with the best and greatest software because it's always updating whether we like it or not.
Yes.
But it's forcing us that's the norm, right? That's the new paradigm. It's not, okay, I've got the software, this is the way it's going to work for the next 5 years. It's always evolving. So now the new paradigm is we're used to it always evolving. And we're
Yes.
used to even iOS, the new iOS version
Hmm.
everyone's up in arms about. But we're so used now to this new paradigm of change that change is norm now, right? When we started off in our careers, the time between change was much, much, much longer. So for those
Yeah.
of us who have come accustomed to that and adopted this new paradigm, it's normal to us now. So we don't feel, worried or scared about it anymore. It's the
Hmm.
norm, the new norm.
Yeah, it's absolutely. In fact, I was in a conference this week where there was someone who does big implementations of the Oracle sort of ERP systems, and he said something very sort of matter of factly, that you know technology will always change. I mean, that's what it is. It's kind of the same way that we moved from the Stone Age to the Iron Age, not because we ran out of stone. So, I mean, essentially technology. And in fact, when we, like 16, 17 years ago, when we realized we needed to come up with a name for our business, Dynamico, we started the business in Spain, and the strategist who was helping us with the naming process, we were doing it in English and Spanish together. And he kept asking us these questions like, what are you really helping your clients do or navigate? And we said, well, we're helping them navigate the changes that will occur
Sure.
as long as technology continues to evolve. So, of course, the Spanish word dinámico, was what floated to the top, and it was kind of the clear
Oh,
winner because it's, we've been testing it now for 16 or 17 years, and it's absolutely still consistent that technology will continue to evolve. And to your earlier point, it's just evolving faster, and we as businesses need to continue to adapt to that evolution.
yeah. Yeah, it's funny. So what you're saying there reminds me of a quick story about a movie. I think it was called Other People's Money, and Danny DeVito was in it. And
Yeah.
there was a scene where his name in the movie was Larry the Liquidator, and his
Hmm.
role was to go into companies and basically liquidate them and sell off the assets. That's it. So he goes to
Hmm.
this company that I think they were making wire cable or something, and they just weren't doing well as a family business. And he went in to liquidate it. And then he fell in love with the owner's daughter, and then he didn't liquidate it. And there was a scene though that where he said, if your company was making buggy whips, there was a point in which you could have made the best buggy whip in the world, but nobody needs buggy whips anymore.
Hmm.
Right? And
Exactly.
so you have to you have to reinvent yourself. You have to, the classic business maturity curve.
Yeah.
So you've got to be anticipating that so that, and technology is such a great enabler of that. And
Hmm.
so it's so important to have good partners, technology partners at your speed dial so that you can use them as trusted advisors to help you decide what technologies you should invest in and use and which ones you should maybe ignore for a bit. But
Yeah.
that's a good, I love that movie. It's great.
Yeah. I need to go. I need to go and watch that one now. So we're talking about the evolution of technology, and we've made it maybe, I don't know, 30 minutes into this recording, and we haven't mentioned the most famous two-letter acronym ever created. But here we go. The evolution that's currently underway
Uh,
with AI reshaping how teams operate. How are you sort of preparing leaders that go through your training to extract real business value rather than chasing hype?
a great question because it's right now it's hard to know what is hype and what is real.
Hmm.
Um, AI is here. It's here. It's here to stay. It's absolutely the next evolution of technology. I remember when I worked for Xerox, we had statistics that said that the amount of information was doubling every 3 years or something, and that's just continued to accelerate.
Hmm.
And so, as human beings, we can't possibly comprehend all that data. So, as AI comes in or is in, and it's able to take a look at all of that data and apply different models and even become little virtual employees of ours to do
Hmm.
that thinking for us and that research, what a great tool. And now it's
Right.
crossing over into actually performing functions for us.
Hmm.
And I was at a marketing conference in Las Vegas before Christmas. It's called the DigiMarcon conference.
Hmm.
And it's funny you say that about 30 minutes into our talk and we haven't mentioned AI yet.
Hmm.
Every presentation was on AI and it was a marketing conference.
Right.
And so what I learned there was a lot of companies have already created these digital AI employees. And so in the marketing realm, is what that presentation was, there's
Hmm.
different job functions that marketers have. And what they learned was the AI agents really can't do 6 or 7 things very well. They can do one thing really, really well. So
Hmm.
what they did is they created each employee in the marketing department. They didn't let go of any people. Each person was responsible for, a half a dozen of these agents. So they became agent managers
Hmm.
and they're managers of the agents to perform these specific functions really, really, really well. And
Yep.
then so with their training and talent and experience in whatever their profession is in marketing, right? Whatever their role is in marketing, whether they're a creative ad person or they're a video person, whatever,
Hmm.
they have this army of employees, digital employees now. So what
Yep.
I'd say to executives is to really ensure that they are leveraging the AI technology to help make the jobs of their existing employees easier. And when it first came out, a lot of companies locked down their IT infrastructure so no one could use it. And there
Hmm.
still is some of that out there, not as much, but it still is there. So
Hmm.
it's really important to embrace it. Remember when the .com happened and websites and everything else, all of us were running around with brochures and presentations still.
Hmm.
And if you didn't have a website after a while, you didn't even look like a legit business. So
Right.
this is the same thing. So it's if you don't have an AI strategy, you should have one. And even if it's very basic, just
Yep.
have one and get learning. Employ people that aren't afraid of AI, bring them in, right? And back to our empowerment again, empower them to come in and
Hmm.
to infect the rest of the company with, best use cases of how they're using AI to perform their roles better. I don't think we should be afraid of it. We should embrace it a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's interesting that the example that you gave from the conference, where I think that's one of the consistent things that we're hearing, like how is sort of management, but I think more importantly, how are business sort of workflows going to evolve as we have AI sort of agents, what I'm starting to call sort of digital staff,
Yeah,
um, that are so again, they like people, those AI agents or digital staff, they need to be managed, right?
yeah,
And of course, the best people to manage them are the people who are currently responsible and in those roles doing those functions. They just now have these robots or AI or technology helping them do the things that are either mundane, or you gave an example earlier at the very beginning of our conversation around there's certain things that a lot of companies just stopped doing because it wasn't worth it. The
right.
time that you had to put into doing something like doing together reports that would take 3 days,
Mhm.
you would just stop doing them because it wasn't worth the time.
No,
Because by the time you got them, the information was already old. Whereas now you can actually start doing things that you weren't thinking about doing, because now you have agents who can do these things in a matter of seconds or minutes, and suddenly you have value in order to make better decisions, faster
mhm.
decisions, and just move faster and provide more of the value that the business was created to provide. Right? I think it's very exciting.
It is, and even now, because everything we talked about so far are sort of lag indicators, right? So, what are the numbers telling us based on what has happened?
Hmm.
Now we're looking at to BI can actually start predicting what's going to happen by looking at the lead indicators of what's happening. So that
Sure.
opens up a whole different type of dashboard for
Yes.
executives.
Yeah.
And so if we're like, just think of sales pipeline. That's how I live my life,
Hmm.
predicting early in the month if we're on track to achieve the number that the sales leader says. Well, you can trust your sales leader and hopefully they will come through. Or
Hmm.
what's the data telling us?
Yeah.
And so using that predictive analytics to tell us what's happening in the sales pipeline, what's happening with customer satisfaction, what's happening with all these types of things, we can now get ahead of it before the lag indicator tells us, oh, this is a bad thing that happened and it's almost too late to correct it.
Mm.
So anyways, I think I love that. The lead indicators of success. I love that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it comes back to what we were talking about earlier, where we were talking about the critical importance of people and leadership and empowerment, et cetera, and then the critical importance of data, and then ultimately technology that makes that all go, that all makes it all better.
Yeah.
And when you sort of summarize that through the lens of what we were just talking about, it almost seems like nirvana, right? I mean, of course,
Yeah,
we're gonna have we'll continue to have other challenges, but clearly this is very exciting.
it is. It is. And whenever we're ripped out of our paradigm, we have fear. So I know a lot of people do have fear right now over this. And there
Hmm.
are jobs that have been eliminated and will be eliminated, just like
Sure.
there was with every other technology change or anything else. But so there's reschooling, there's retraining, there's different things like that. It's just you just have to pivot. But this is such an exciting time for all these small companies that are starting up right now. They're building their companies based on using these tools from day one. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then for the rest of us, we need to pivot so that we're being efficient as well.
Right. Rob, so before we wrap up, could you share, I'm intrigued by your calm sales program.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what that program is and does?
Yeah, no, I'd love to. Thanks for the opportunity. So I've been in sales a really long time, 27 years to be exact. And I started off as a service technician at Xerox. And I ended up going into sales reluctantly, but I was intrigued by the possibility of making more money for my family and that type of thing. I
Hmm.
didn't consider myself a joke teller. I didn't consider myself a schmoozer and all those kinds of words you would think most sellers should be. I took the Xerox training, which was phenomenal, and I had a territory and I lasted 6 months and I was going to quit. And then I ended up not quitting. I did a lot of work in positive mindset. Now we call it manifestation. That either turns
Mm.
you on or off. That word is a very polarizing word, but it's basically
Hmm.
mindset work and neural type work, neuroscience.
Hmm.
And I applied that stuff and I flourished. So here I am, the shy, quiet service technician, working in a very extroverted career choice. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like the top seller, top manager consistently for years. And so I left Xerox and went off and tried this in other companies, other industries and other companies. And the same thing happened. Successful,
Mm-hmm.
successful, successful. So I ended up leaving corporate life because I really spent a lot of time learning the art of manifesting what you want to achieve in life. And again, very polarizing word.
Yeah.
But what I decided to do is take the mindset piece, take the skills of selling, the things that I've battle tested in the field at work, and create a simple curriculum that anyone that wants to sell for a living, whether they're a salesperson or an entrepreneur, and balance the mindset you need to have to succeed and the real sales skills and tools to use to be successful. So that's what so I called it CALM.
Mm-hmm.
So it stands for Clear Authentic Learning Methodology. It's an acronym.
Mm-hmm.
And the word calm is exactly what I love, because there's so many salespeople and entrepreneurs is so stressed out trying to get that next deal. And there's no reason to be. It's just sales is a process. Sales is a bit of an art and a science combined. It's all
Mm-hmm.
about people still. Even with AI, it's still about people. And
Absolutely.
you can use tools to make it easier, right? We talked earlier about marketing automation and CRM together is just liquid gold.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't have that, you should.
Mm.
So yeah, that's my whole meaning for living now, is to help sellers and entrepreneurs and companies sell with a lot less stress. That's what I do now.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing that, and of course, and thank you for doing it, because it's, you know, even though there are a lot of there's a lot of types of, training and coaching out there. There's the demand for it is even greater than the supply. So
There is, yeah.
yeah, thank you. So I'm going to wrap up, Rob, with one last question. So if, founders, entrepreneurs, and leaders listening today, what is one mindset or action they can adopt right away to align their teams and accelerate growth?
That's a good question. The one mindset thing that a leader needs to have is total belief in the company's mission. And even if there's times where the leader is doubting, because that happens, right? As all of us have that as leaders.
Hmm.
But when you're in front of your people and when you're leading the team, that's not something they should ever see, is my belief.
Hmm.
It's something that by having that belief in what you're doing, that's what gets people to follow a leader, is total belief. Now, if you believe your strategy is wrong, that's a whole different thing. Change that, leave it, and
Yeah.
off you go again, right? But the leader needs to believe, and that cascades down. And if they see
Right.
doubt or any kind of, and that's the cornerstone of manifesting, is you use your imagination to create a vision of what you want to happen, and
Hmm.
then there's techniques after that to make it happen. So as an entrepreneur, as a founder, it's the same
Hmm.
thing. Ray Kroc, the movie The Founder, if
Yes.
anyone hasn't watched it, watch it. I think it's on Netflix.
Hmm.
And you'll see this milkshake salesman recognizes the brilliance in the McDonald's brothers process and
Hmm.
sees the opportunity to take that and franchise it. And that's what he does.
Hmm.
And you'll watch, he goes in his hotel room because he's a traveling salesman for milkshakes machines. And he's
Hmm.
listened to this record. Back then it was records, and it was all around mindset. And it was
Hmm.
all about persistence, 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 and all this thing. And then near the end of the movie, he's already famous. McDonald's is huge success. And he's getting ready to do an address at some conference, and he's in front of the mirror, and he's repeating the things that he used to hear when he listened to those records. So
Hmm.
it's just, controlling what your mind thinks about is the name of the game. And as a
Hmm.
leader, that's critical, absolutely critical. That's my
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And I was telling you right before we hit the record button that I actually, I just got back from Toronto myself,
Uh-huh.
and I was there for a 2-day session together with 50 other entrepreneurs, and our coach for the day on Wednesday asked a question that I'd never been asked before, which I thought was so incredibly valuable. And
Huh.
because one of the reasons that we were there was to reflect, reflect on your past achievements and success, because as entrepreneurs we tend to always think about what we haven't done yet,
Yeah.
and don't think enough about what we've already achieved, which is
Yeah.
what gives us the confidence to keep going. But the question was, and I thought I might just throw this in there while sort of entrepreneurs and leaders are, or I guess it's more really for entrepreneurs and founders. The question is, why do you love your company?
Mm. Wow.
It's such a powerful question because it's so foundationally human, right?
Mm.
And of course, and the response, we kind of went around the room, not everybody, but people were giving examples of why they love their company. Of course, there are certain things that everybody has in common, but it's a really powerful question. And of course the answers of course are equally powerful, because a lot of it comes around creating value, creating opportunities of employment, et cetera, et cetera. But again, it's something we need to remind ourselves about why we're doing what we're doing and the potential value that we can create if we do it, in the right way.
That's awesome. Yeah. There's
Yeah.
very few entrepreneurs that didn't start with some form of passion, for
Right.
something, and then they turn that into a business. So it'd be interesting to see if their answer for that question goes back to that original passion.
Yeah, I think for like in just this one situation with 50 entrepreneurs, I didn't hear anything to that. It was more based on what do they love about the company today,
Okay. So,
and not when they started it. But there
mm,
probably would be some responses in that vein. Yeah.
yeah. That's a
Well,
great.
Rob, thanks. Yeah, Rob, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, there were a lot of good insights, and we'll put a link to your website. And I'm guessing anything around your com program would be on your website too. Is that a good place for people to find you?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, either that or LinkedIn. Look me up on LinkedIn.
Okay. Rob Triggs on LinkedIn.
It's me.
Excellent. Rob, thanks again.
Thank you.